All right, day one, I'm not going to even congratulate you yet. Day one. Let's leave it at that, because that makes when I congratulate you on other days meaningless. Day one, for those of you who were fat adapted, we got in ketosis, we started intermittent fasting, eating less often, no problem today. I got hungry one time. We were on a bike ride, and I turned and I said to Marilee, okay, I just got that hunger feeling. Why? Because this is exactly, typically the time when I had it is when I would eat. Got through it, fine now. So because I've prepared for this, really no big deal. As a matter of fact, I just said to my wife on the way home from our little bike ride, you know, I didn't even drink water today. Not one drink, not one sip of water. That wasn't even by design, but I might as well just go ahead and fast a little beyond 24 hours dry fast. Dry fast means without drinking water. I talked a little bit about it on the last video. Why would you dry fast? Well, because it actually creates even more autophagy. Again, I'm not recommending dry fast. Should definitely be something it's a little more advanced, you know, that you do under supervision, but I've done many of these fasts, so very easy for me. But what it does is about 3-to-1 autophagy, because your body has to get water, so it starts breaking down fat cells much more rapidly to get that water. Yep, it's that intelligent. So anyways, without design, because honestly, I was never thirsty. I'm still not thirsty. And we took an hour bike ride. It was an easy bike ride. On the fasting group, you can see the video that I did. It's just a fun 2-minute video about one of my things that I want to tell you today. So the question that we always get is, you know, can I exercise? And really, you know, I like to move the energy towards healing. I could go out and hammer a bike ride and I could do fine, right? My hormones would rise up, hormone optimization. It would keep my body in survival mode, no problem. But I like to utilize the energy for healing. I like to focus the intelligence on the healing. So I'm not going to do that, except maybe day 4 and day 5. Once full adaptation comes in, I'm going to experiment with that again. So I'll let you know how that goes or what I do. But what I did today is just took an easy bike ride for an hour. Maybe you take an easy walk. Just because we want to keep our lymphatic system moving, it's very important to keep the toxins moving out. So a little movement every day is good. I also got a little sun today. If you can get outside in the sun, it's an amazing thing to do while you're fasting. Don't overdo it. It could zap your energy and you could feel worse. So please, when it comes to movement, when it comes to the sun, when it comes to infrared saunas, listen to your body. Don't do too much. Even very hot showers can be drawing from you for the energy. So one of the recommendations I'm going to have for the cramps and some of the symptoms is Epsom salt baths. But go warm water, not too hot water, because again, the hot water seems to zap the energy that we're utilizing for healing. So what's happening today? What's happening today is our bodies are dumping glycogen out of the liver and the muscles. That's a good thing. We're talking about after about 24 hours, you know, most of that glycogen is just dumping out, and we're running about half stores, what I always say, about half filled, which is where you want to be, because then the body will say, wait a minute, we need some glycogen still left. Because if we have to run from a lion or survive, and remember that's what the body always wants to do, then it wants to keep some of that glycogen there, but then it starts to reach for the fat. Right now, you're going through some gluconeogenesis, most of you. Yes, you're dumping the glucose out of the liver, which is part of that process, but also you're probably losing a little muscle in the process. Most of that happens in that first 24 hours, but the body's smart. It's not going to stay there. It's going to raise up growth hormone. Day 1, we already have a growth hormone spike. So right now, enjoy it. You're riding out some great growth hormone right now. So healing's already started. Right now, you're getting a little bit of autophagy. Studies show that even in 24 hours, the autophagy's starting. So right now, the healing is starting. That's the good news. Now, for those of you who are fat adapted, the better news is the fact that tomorrow, yeah, it'll be much easier. You will have times where you get that little hunger or you think about food. Maybe it's an emotional thing. I got up this morning and wanted that warm cup of organic coffee. I was like, didn't have that. And so
It wasn't that good.
It wasn't that good. Thank you. Yeah, it's great. Now tomorrow night, I actually have to sit through a business dinner, a friendly dinner, whatever it is. It's kind of combination. Oh my gosh! So imagine that.
At his favorite restaurant.
At my favorite restaurant. I
With
have to
his
go to
favorite
dinner.
people.
All right, let's face it, girl behind the camera. You couldn't do it.
I wouldn't do it. I forget, couldn't, wouldn't.
I'm doing it. So
You're
actually,
a bigger man than me.
I said that the gentleman, Dr. Zach, I hopefully you're watching, but he's on day 9, maybe he's on day 10 now, but he sent me a text with him. It is a burger place with his family going, these are my weaknesses and I have to endure this, but he's doing just fine. But so this shift is occurring, and that's what I really want you to understand, is the autophagy action is already starting, the growth hormones are already starting, and something called norepinephrine, noradrenaline, aka, is actually starting to rise to save your life. And that's why the growth hormone's coming up. The growth hormone's rising to spare your muscle. So you're not going to lose bad muscle. You're going to lose only bad protein that your intelligence decides, you know, these guys aren't looking good. These mitochondria are bad. They're malfunctioning, misbehaving. This DNA doesn't look great. We're going to use all of this bad stuff, and we're going to use these amino acids to make hormones from. Proteins to make all that it needs for you to function. Yeah, you still need protein. Your body's going to get all the nutrients it can from its stores and from these bad tissues. It knows what the heck it's doing. So we're crossing in to trusting that innate intelligence. I'm going to say it again. So I said I didn't drink water. I didn't finish my point. Drink when thirsty. I haven't got thirsty yet. I'm just going to ride it out and see when it occurs. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. So we'll find out. So, and then also we're going to review the ketone. I promised that. So this is the Keto Mojo. So it's going to get fun now a little bit here because this morning, okay, so I feasted like crazy yesterday, right?
Oh,
so,
pierogies.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I was so the day before I fasted, I ate one meal, and yesterday I ate 3 huge meals. I increased my carbs, I increased my protein, and I increased my caloric intake. And I laid in bed going, oh my God. Anyway, another story. But
thank God for Bind.
I woke up this morning and my ketones read low. And by the way, I was fat adapted in ketosis, so I definitely did myself right. Let's just see what they are now.
But we did have a girl come over, and she had been wanting to make us pierogies, and she asked about this week, and I said, oh my gosh, how about tonight? So anyway, it was amazing, and they were fantastic. They were probably the best I've ever had in my life, and I'm convinced the trick is the ricotta.
Okay, so simple thing. I put the stick in, boom, prick it, do that. It's the little drop showing up. Boom. So went from low this morning, meaning it didn't even show up. That's how bad my ketones were. But that was by design, of course.
And you did just...
So now I'm 1.2. Oh, and I went for a bike ride. So
right.
Actually, when you go for a bike ride, glucose goes up and it forces ketones down. So I might have been actually already at 2.0. Because when you exercise, by the way, that's a really good point. So when you exercise...
No.
She's like, I'm like blood drop, right? When you exercise, glucose should come up a little bit. Your body's releasing some of the glucose, it should. And then ketones will tend to drop down. Remember, glucose and ketones always go opposite. And that's one of the things that I want to review with you, because tomorrow morning I want you to measure, thank you, I want you to measure your glucose and your ketones in the morning. So we'll call this AM. And then I want you to do it again before your first meal. That's BFM. Okay? Glucose and ketones. So let's say you get up in the morning and you're 80. And if you're fat adapted, you'll probably already be 2 something, I bet, on your ketones. So let's just say you're 2.0. And then before first meal, that's funny I just said that. I'm used to doing this for intermittent fasting. You're not eating a meal before your first water. No, we'll just put later in the afternoon. So we'll put AM, we'll put later in the afternoon, PM. And then what we should see is a trending down. So maybe you trend down to 70 or 75, and your ketones trend up to 3.0. So the point is we want glucose to drop, ketones to rise. Now, I did want to make the point of this. You have to understand that if you do exercise or you do get in the sauna even, right, you're going to push your glucose up and your ketones down slightly. So the more activity, if you get stressed out, don't even bother measuring, because you will drive glucose up, because glucose follows cortisol in a stressful reaction, and then your ketones will drop. So when you're testing your glucose and ketones, just kind of, do it on the same times a day, not doing a lot of activity, so you can get an idea that your body's utilizing fat. It's just fun to watch. Now, just as a review, remember you're in ketosis when you're above 0.5. Now, one of the things I was trying to do, 0.5, one of the points here is when you're in ketosis, typically you're going to be maybe between, somewhere between 0.5 and 2. 2.5 is a high. The benefits of fasting is we're going to get 4 times the level of ketones. So many of you are I'm going to hear this question in the next couple days. Is it okay? My glucose is in the 50s. Is that okay? And my answer is going to be, it's okay as long as your ketones are rising. So if your glucose is 50 and your ketones are, say 4.5, awesome. 5, even better. So as long as your glucose is dropping, some of you are going to see glucoses, believe it or not, I bet in the 30s and the 40s, and as long as those ketones are high, you have no problem. If you went to the doctor or the hospital and you had those high ketones and that low glucose, they would immediately think you're in diabetic ketoacidosis and they would be panicking. So, but the fact is that's exactly what is normal to happen. The glucose trends down. Now, we're going to talk more about this. I can't do it all in one video, but many of you are going to struggle with your glucose not coming down. And that is, again, that's a problem in your mitochondria. I'm going to give you the short answer right now. Many of you just need to fast more feast famine. So remember, if you didn't watch the video that I did on diet variation, I think it was like 2 videos ago, it may be one of the most important videos, because what we're doing here, even with this fast, whether you're doing the water fast or the fasting mimicking diet, which was the last video, what we're doing here is 5 days, whether it's a fasting mimicking diet, I talked about us doing it with our clients 5 days every month, and then every once in a while throwing in a 5-day water fast. That is diet variation. So we're creating a situation where we're feasting and famine, feast, famine, which forces the body to adapt. And it adapts with growth hormone. It adapts with that norepinephrine that I told you about. And I talked a little bit about that norepinephrine. Yes, it brings blood into the muscles. It increases our heart rate, gets us ready for flight or fight in the acute situation. But norepinephrine also heals the brain. It downregulates inflammation. Norepinephrine is associated with most neurodegenerative disease, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, even bipolar disorder. So when we created a situation where the body has to adapt, even exercise, we're creating a situation where the body has to adapt. Norepinephrine and growth hormone rise up. That's a really good thing for us long term. So when we're doing this fast right now for 5 days, we're forcing up these hormones. So hormone optimization is why we're doing this, and it's happening via adaptation. And that's the principle that I like to call diet variation. Why it's important to feast famine, why it's important to even change our diet, where most people stay on the same diet. So the question I proposed is, who's right? The vegans, the vegetarians, the paleo people? What about the super high carb diet now? Every time we turn around, it's a new diet. Well, I think they're all right. The key is not in the diet. The key is in the variation. And many of you can understand that. Think about exercise. When you first start an exercise program, you get all these results. Because, see, you're forcing your body to adapt, right? That's all you're doing. And then how does it adapt? It adapts by getting more sensitive to hormones, right? Upregulating certain hormones like growth hormone. And that adaptation gives you the result you're looking for. However, the result doesn't last, does it? And then all of a sudden, you see you're watching the TV at midnight. You shouldn't watch TV at midnight or buy anything, but there you are watching TV at midnight. And you see this next great thing, this TRX, P90X, whatever it is, and you buy it. And you start and go, this is what I needed. It's working. It's not the thing. It's the change. Just like the diet. This diet is, oh my God, you changed this diet. This diet's working so good. It's the change. We want to force adaptation. You've seen me do some of the cryotherapy where you get into the cold. Well, what happens in that is you upregulate growth hormone and norepinephrine. And what happens after the cryotherapy for 3 minutes? You downregulate inflammation. People feel amazing. Your mood uplifts because norepinephrine plays into your neurotransmitters and how your brain works. I just said that earlier. But the point is you force the adaptation in the hormone optimization through cryotherapy. That's why the hot, cold, all of that is basically what we're doing with the diet. We are doing this periodically to force adaptation. So my point is this. Many of you are going to struggle to get your glucose down and your ketones up. And that glucose going down is critical because you will not utilize the ketones. Your brain won't utilize the ketones as long as your glucose is still up. We want to see it trending down. And the lower it goes, the higher the ketones, the more your brain's going to use the ketones. And the more autophagy you have, and this is the big one, the more stem cells you actually make. And as we age, we start producing less viable stem cells. Therefore, we're not recovering from injury the same. Our brains aren't clicking the same. It takes us longer to recover after exercise. We lose muscle. All these age-related diseases. We're really now learning that it's these lack of stem cells. That's why this diet is very important. That's why fasting intermittently, even daily, is very important. But periodic fasts like this, whether it's the fasting mimicking diet that I spoke about last time, or water fasting periodically like we're teaching you, is important. We're forcing hormone optimization via adaptation. We're causing autophagy to happen where our body's getting rid of all the bad cells and bad proteins, and we're driving up stem cells, which we know is how ultimately you live longer. So I talked about Valter Longo last time on the fasting mimicking diet and how caloric restriction long-term extended life a little bit in studies, but it also caused some other things. Catabolic, too much of autophagy can create other problems, immune problems, etc. long-term. But what he realized is if we do it short terms, 5 days every month, we can actually get the best of both worlds. And that's what we're doing here, feast-famine cycles. But this glucose is going to be a big thing. So pay attention to your glucose numbers here early in the week. And if this isn't trending down, you're not getting the benefit from the ketones. And again, if that's the case, the short answer is you need more feast-famine cycles in your life. Watch diet variation. That's really the key. Also, I'll say this, and we're going to have a whole piece on this. Detox is key. Many of you are going to get a lot of symptoms over the next 3 days. Keto flu, as we call it, when you're in ketosis. But these symptoms typically with fasting are a little worse. Detox. Many of you that don't get lower glucoses and high ketones, detox, cellular detox is the ultimate reason why. But bad mitochondria is ultimately the reason why. But toxins can affect those mitochondria. So we're going to build on this component. Okay, Mary, let's just take some questions.
Someone asked about the ketonics that we used to use to measure ketones. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, the breath? Mm-hmm. I don't like it. That one I tested for a couple months, my son and I, and we just couldn't find, it was too delayed, number one. And it was just, if you breathe too heavy or too light, it changed your numbers. We were like down into it and we still couldn't get it to be like immediate afterwards. Now, there is one that I will show you called Level. And matter of fact, I'll grab it right here just so you can see it. But this one is actually much better. So this one is called the Level system. And you're breathing into these devices, and it's much more accurate. This one I actually like, but you have to understand, there's still a delay, meaning that this is measuring acetone in the breath, and it's nice because you can just do it as much as you want, right? It doesn't cost you $1 strip. And it's LEVL. Matter of fact, my team will put a link on this because the company actually is giving you a deal on this unit, I believe. So I plan on talking about it anyway.
And we'll also put a link up. Someone asked about the one we use. It's Keto Mojo, and we will have a link up there as well.
And that's getketomojo.com, getketomojo.com, the one you just saw me use. So this is measuring acetone. And that means, here's the neat thing about this. It comes in pretty neat later on too, because what happens is some of you, as you get more fat adapted in like day 4 of the fast, you may see your afternoon ketones dropping. And you're going to say, wait a minute, Papa, you said, glucose up, ketones down as the day goes on as an indicator on burning more fat for energy. Here's what starts to happen. You become really efficient. Your brain starts sucking these ketones up, especially as glucose goes lower. All of a sudden, you can see the ketones dropping because of your body using them. Because it wants them and it's burning, it needs more of them. So it's burning the beta-hydroxybutyrate. That's the ketone that we're measuring in the blood. And then we're going to see higher acetones, because what happens is when you oxidize the beta-hydroxybutyrate in your blood, you raise acetone. That's what that's measuring. So there's a little delay there. But it's really neat because you'll see that really coming up. So people who are really efficient at using ketones oftentimes have higher breath levels than people who might have a really high blood, but their brain's not using them. So my son and I, we found that to be the case. I always had higher blood ketone levels than him when we were kind of doing the same thing, but his acetone in the breath was way higher because he's so efficient, young, and he's just ripping those ketones up. So anyways, that was a great question.
Will taking salt in warm water affect my pre-hypertension?
Typically not. Again, everybody's different. So
It's a first-time faster.
Yeah.
So just pay attention. And ask your doctor with any questions.
Absolutely, regarding medication, especially be careful there. So, and then I had a couple other questions too. A couple of the other tips. The magnesium baths can help cramps. Change some of the salts. Some of you may, if you're doing Celtic sea salt, try Himalayan if you're still getting cramps, because I saw a lot of you were getting cramps. Or the opposite, if you're Himalayan, go to Celtic. So try some different salts, and they taste different too, and they have different mineral components is what it is. And I saw someone ask, hey, I know we're not supposed to take supplements, can I take potassium? Yes, you can. You can take potassium or an electrolyte as long as it doesn't have sugar in it.
Asked if you could take creatine.
No, we don't want to strain the kidneys, so no creatine.
Can you dry fast anytime during the 5-day fast?
Anytime, honestly. And again, listen to your body. If you're also really, really thirsty, then maybe it's not a great idea. But yes, you can. So, and some of you, again, if you're not really thirsty, go for it. I know many people do that. They'll just dry fast throughout maybe 24 hours.
Do we have to fight through the headaches? Yes. And the sea salt should help.
Yeah, the sea salt helps that, right? And the headaches, especially if you're coffee drinkers and you don't drink coffee, you could get headaches. I didn't get a headache, but I don't drink that much coffee. So, but many caffeine people, yeah, you're going to have to fight through that the first day.
Are there any special instructions for those that do not have a gallbladder?
Well, if you don't have a gallbladder, you might need more bind, because all of a sudden the liver could dump a lot of bile at once. And again, it's not like you're eating fat, so you don't need to take bile. But coffee enema also can help push out the bile. And I'm going to talk more about the coffee enema again throughout the fast, especially when people start getting symptoms. We're going to talk about the coffee enema. Most of you aren't at the really symptomatic place yet. That typically day 3 can happen.
We measure our ketones with the Keto Mojo, and the same meter also measures your glucose, just a different strip.
It does. They come with 2 different strips. Good question. So with the same drop of blood, I should have measured my glucose. I didn't think about it, but with the same drop of blood, it would have probably been a little bit elevated because I did the bike ride. But to my point, though, that would have been a good teaching moment.
I'm going to measure mine.
Anyway, so you could do yours right now. So anyways, with the same blood drop, ketone strip and glucose strip.
How high is still okay for the ketones to get?
Well, look, I mean, some of you are going to see, believe it or not, 8, 9s, and 10s, just because you're going to really throw your ketones up. That's fine. Obviously, if you start pushing above 15 or 20, there's a problem. So that's not normal. But I doubt that would happen. If it does, go to the hospital, go to your doctor. But typically, ketoacidosis, as it's known, diabetic ketoacidosis. Typically, we see 50, 100, 200 ketones. That's a problem. I literally had a client, or actually one of my doctors, this happened to me and one of my doctors, they went to the hospital and they said, oh my gosh, you're in ketoacidosis. And, I got a text or an email from my doctor, and I said, what was the number? Because this happened to me once. They were 4.6 ketones. They thought that was ketoacidosis. No, up to 8 or 9 is actually very normal. There's a hummingbird.
Yeah, there's also a glare, so I'm trying to adjust this. There we go. Okay, and I think you addressed the blood glucose threshold that you want to be under. Well,
Yeah,
roughly,
well,
just,
I mean,
it's
what I
going
want
to
to
change.
see is, right, I want to see it dropping through the process. That's what we want to see as an indicator your ketones rising. So that's why I wanted to review that. And again, we're going to keep, building on this concept. But the glucose, most of you should definitely start every day. It should trend down. So if you're 90s, you should be in the 80s by tomorrow morning. I like to measure first thing in the morning before you get moving around as your most accurate measurement. And typically your ketones is about 25% lower in the morning. Later on you'll produce higher ketones. So, but it's a really good accurate measurement. But okay, and let's say you get down to the 80s, then you're going to see the 70s. This morning I was I was in the 80s, but it was my carb day. So normally, like tomorrow morning, I'll be 70s. I'll let you know what I am. Then probably the next day, I'll be 60s, and then 50s. And then I may see 40s. I saw 48 on my last fast was my low glucose.
What are your thoughts on drinking ketones to get extra?
No, look, I mean, we don't want to drink ketones. If you're in a sporting event and you're trying to biohack, great. But we don't want to do keto. There's a feedback mechanism. I'm glad you asked that question. There's a feedback mechanism with ketones, just like anything in the body, right? So if you're taking ketones, the body wants to slow fat metabolism down because it goes, oh, we have plenty of ketones. So we want to go through, the ketones are a product of the process of burning fat, right? We want to burn fat and make ketones. And believe me, there's probably way more to that magic to that than we even know. We want to go through the process of using our fat and making our own ketones. When you take ketones, you can technically, and you do, slow that process down. So the object is to go through the process, make our own ketones, and then here's the other problem. When you take ketones and the glucose is high, that's an abnormal situation. So that's really, this is a new territory, being able to take ketones. We have to be a little careful there. So don't take ketones.
If I don't have bind but want to do coffee enemas, is there another option?
Oh boy, the problem with most binders is they're contaminated. Bind has 4 different types of binders in it. One is a very active carbon. Carbon holds a lot of toxins. Every batch that comes in, they test it because it'll hold lead, arsenic, pesticides, a lot of stuff. There's another binder in there called humates. Humic acids, and fulvic acids, another. Their fulvates hold a lot of lead, so you have to be really careful with those binders. Another one that's used, it's the diatomaceous earth, clays, contaminated. Typically they hold lead. Be careful. So you have to know your binders. That's the one good thing about bind. Number one is that there's 4 different types of binders, and it's clean. So be careful there.
See if they can ship it overnight.
Yeah, and again, I would say, if you had a clean Corella, but Corella will bind some, chemicals, but it's not a really good binder of the biocomplex or the heavy metals.
I just ordered the recommended supplements today, the fasting trio. I probably will receive them after the fast. So when should I use them? After the fast?
The fast tonic, use it if you feel bad. And some people just use it anyway because it helps with hydrogen, helps with a lot of, it's a redox molecule that helps with a lot of cellular processes and down-regulating oxidative stress, hydroxy-free radicals, etc. Bind, I won't use it unless I I used it last night actually because I ate all those carbs. I said I'm gonna use mine.
I felt great.
But anyways, I wouldn't use it. It's cytodetox. If you're feeling really, really toxic, then those things are going to come in handy. Fast tonic, I think you could use no matter what. I think the redox molecules would actually improve your fast, but the other ones you may not need.
Okay, and then someone asked, I think you've addressed a few of these on other videos. I encourage you all to watch all the videos because a lot of these your questions will be answered.
Yeah, please. If a lot of people are new, a lot of people joined this even today. We got tons of requests. So.
Hey Gina, in your opinion, after researching more and learning more, in your opinion, what is the most ideal day of a woman's cycle to begin a water fast?
Yeah,
after it's over.
There was a point where I said, and this is true. Is it Gina? Is it our Gina?
It is. Okay. It's our Gina.
Well, she's one of the ones, right? I would have said,
there will never be another Gina,
don't fast during your cycle, right? Your body's already stressed, right? Well, I've had many people by happenstance fast during their cycle, and it was magic for them. So I've recanted that. I guess I was wrong. You know, I just logically, I didn't have a study or a really solid evidence to suggest that wouldn't be the case, but it was like, well, you know, it makes sense. But the body's cleansing, so maybe add to it. So I had good responses during that time. So I guess anytime the body is designed to fast, really. And then the videos. Go to the fasting group, and it's under announcements, under fasting for a purpose, under announcements. All of the videos are there. Please, if you're new, please go back and watch them, because even the language that I'm using, like today, I was talking about fasting mimicking diet. What is he talking about? You didn't watch the video. You know, a lot of these questions on supplements and can I have coffee, tea, it's in those. You know, we're building on this information. I was talking about hormone optimization via adaptation. That's a video. Diet variation, that's a video. Please watch the videos and share them.
Ketone strips that you urinate on? No.
No, great question. Thank you. So you cannot do urine. Urine, when you first go into ketosis, urine, your body's making ketones. It shows up in the urine, and people are always like, "Ooh, I'm in ketosis in 2 days." You're not in ketosis. All you're doing is making some ketones, and they're flushing in your urine. You're not even using them. As a matter of fact, when ketones show up in your urine, you're not using them. Your body's flushing them typically in the early parts of ketosis. So, you know, it's just not an accurate assessment of what's really going on.
If you measure using the Mojo and are shown to be in the keto range, glucose is 30, ketones 1.2, does this mean your body is actually in ketosis or just producing ketones and not necessarily utilizing them?
Well, that's a great question, because your body can be producing ketones and you still feel like crap. Okay, I'm going to have that in the next 3 days. Someone's going to say, well, gosh, you said I was going to feel better. My son said this to me. Remember Simon? He said, Dad, you said I was going to feel better tomorrow when my ketones were higher, and they're 4.5, and I still don't feel good. And that was the beginning of day 4.
Yeah.
And I said, your brain still hasn't adapted to them yet. It will. And by that afternoon, he was running around outside. Woo, you know. And it's like, you know, so all of a sudden it was like brain started using ketones, cells got fat adapted. So that's a great question. Just because you're making ketones, you might see 3.5 or 4, but until your brain starts using them, you're not going to feel good. And again, I'm going to reiterate this, until we start seeing lower glucoses, your brain won't use them very efficiently or at all. So we need low glucose to use the ketones. Very important.
Is a dry fast or fast best on day 4 or 5 with stem cell rise, or is there no difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no difference. I mean, day 4, we're getting a lot of we're getting a lot of autophagy and stem cells by day 4 and 5. And arguably, if you're dry fasted, you're making that happen even more. So,
what is the best binder for amalgam removal process?
Well, for amalgam removal, we always use bind before and after the appointment, right before, right after, and cytodetox right before and right after. Remember, cytodetox actually goes up in and around the cells, in the cells. Bind stays in the gut. We want both when it comes to amalgam.
And all these products that you're asking about are all available on Revelation Health.
Yeah, exactly. My team will repost some of the products we're talking about. And again, go back and watch the last video, because we don't want to take the only products we're taking. Bind stays in the gut. It's not pushing the body one way or another. Electrolytes we take because our body's losing them. We don't want herbs that make the body go left or right. We want the innate intelligence to take over. So we'll use a product to clean toxins out if we need it. Fast Tonic doesn't push the body left or right. All it does, it's hydrogen. It's a redox molecule. I talked about Restore and ASEA. Watch the last video. Someone
asked, they've never fasted before, and is there a red flag at a point in which you definitely should stop a fast?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're severely sick, stop the fast. Yeah, I mean, again, consult your doctor. I mean, it's definitely, so you can move into a fasting mimicking diet like I talked about last time. Much, much easier for some people, and you still get autophagy, you still get benefits from that. So yeah, I mean, if you're very, very sick, stop the fast.
Someone said their glucose went up the further they got into the fast last time. What would this be? You're working too much, just working too hard.
Yeah, sometimes if you're doing too much, you can see, you're pushing gluconeogenesis, and your glucose can be up too much. You could be too stressed. not a good scenario. You may need shorter fasts, like we're doing. Like I talked about this past video, the intermittent fasting video, where we work people up to this. Right? This is this whole process of how we worked you up to this fast. But fasting 3 days a week, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, then 3 days a week, just doing 1 day fast, it gets your mitochondria used to this process first, because many of you, just to jump into the fast, it's too difficult. That's why we've been doing these videos, to really get your cells more efficient at burning fat for energy, and therefore it's easier for us. But many of you, absolutely, listen, I train doctors around the country in these concepts, of how we bring a person to this point. So please watch all of those videos, because maybe the fasting mimicking diet that I talked about last time is for you. So if you're having too many symptoms during the fast, not good. So this is the fasting mimicking diet, where we get our calories to 500 if you weigh between 100 and 150. If you weigh 150 to 200, we get our calories to 800. That's a daily intake. And then if you're above 200, it's 1,000. It's a high fat, and where it's no meat. So here's the products that are allowed on it, and it's no meat. It's a vegan diet, basically. We're getting most of our calories from our oils, fats, and butter is an option there. Raw nuts and seeds, some of these fattier fruits and green veggies. And again, no meat. And the key though is keeping our protein under 20 grams. So that's a fasting mimicking diet, aka partial fasting. And we even talked about, I don't know if my team was able to put it on it, but Dr. Longo and his team has a box of food, literally you can buy, that is the perfect food for that diet. And I'm very behind that. It's a great option. And I'm very behind partial fasting. I've done them for years, and he named it the fasting mimicking diet. You get a lot of the same benefits as fasting, and it's much easier for people. And a lot of time we do those first, even before a big fast. But watch these videos from beginning to end, because that's how we evolve you into making this easier. And
someone asked about having a bowel movement in 4 days. No big deal. Your body will do what it needs to do.
Exactly. That's a great thing. You probably took 50 questions off the trip, right there. So many of you, you're going to have a bowel movement. It's very normal to have a bowel movement the first day, maybe one the second day. You're not eating. You shouldn't be having bowel movements. If maybe the last stage, some people get some black, and that's detox stuff, right? But you really shouldn't be having bowel movements after 2 days. So matter of fact, I'll have one today. I'll probably have a small one tomorrow, and that'll be it.
That's a wrap.
That's it. Cool.
All right, you guys. All right. Have a great night. Mm-hmm. Happy day one ending.
Tomorrow, same time, 6 o'clock.
Tomorrow's a party.
Standard
Once
time.
Today's done, it's all...
Not for some of these not-fat adapted people. It's going to get still hard.
We're going to do great. We're praying for you, and we're excited for you.
Pray for you tomorrow, too. Absolutely.
Good night.